What is going on, Raiders? Soda Dragon here, and today I'm showing you advanced techniques for your Infinity Clan Boss team. Now I know some of you guys might be wondering whether or not I've been taking a break from Raid because I haven't been posting lately, or whether or not I'm even playing Raid that much at all. And the answer is no, I'm not taking a break and I've been playing Raid a ton. So what have I been doing? Well, I've been fine-tuning my Infinity Clan Boss team to get this kind of damage. 222 million on Ultra Nightmare. Not Nightmare, Ultra Nightmare. I've been researching Infinity Clan Boss teams a lot the past few days, plus I've had Mullet Reaver himself, the guy that holds a world record, help me out personally with my questions on the Infinity Clan Boss team. So today I'm going to share with you some really advanced techniques to maximize the damage on your Infinity Clan Boss team. Now I know what a ton of you guys are saying out there, well, I have everybody but Krisk. Is this possible to do this type of team, an Infinity Clan Boss team, without Krisk? Now I actually do think so, and yes, I will release a video in the future once I get everything down and pat. But the damage isn't going to be as ridiculously high. But if you just want to, like, one key Ultra Nightmare, I absolutely believe it's possible without Krisk. And all the basic techniques I discussed about the Infinity Clan Boss team in my previous video, and the advanced techniques I'm going to talk about in this video, will all apply to that Krisk-less Infinity Clan Boss team. So guys, briefly, for those of you who didn't watch my previous video or don't understand what Infinity Clan Boss teams are, well, how do they work? Well, let's start off with Brogni. He is the only irreplaceable member of an Infinity Clan Boss team. His only role on this team is to grow the size of your shields. That is their capacity to take damage. He does not extend the duration of shields, but he can grow their size. And in fact, he's the only champion that can do this. That's why he is absolutely irreplaceable to this type of composition. Next up, guys, we never want those shields that are constantly being grown by Brogni to expire. Remember, he cannot extend the duration of the shields. He can only expand their size, make them bigger. So we need buff extenders. Ideally, we want 3 buff extenders, and we want their buff extension skills on a 3-turn cooldown. This will ensure that all of our champs constantly have those shields up the whole time. So our buff extenders here, all of which are on a 3-turn cooldown, are Sandlash Survivor, Krisk, and Hellborn Sprite. And our last slot is going to be left for damage, and that is going to go to Corpulent Cadaver here. So that is your basic run through of how an Infinity Clan Boss team works. Now, the devil is always in the details. So what is Krisk bringing to the table besides buff extension? Well, he has an attack down and defense down debuff that he places on anybody that attacks him. And yes, it's going to be the clan boss, 2 out of 3 attacks. Plus he has ally protection and increased speed. Now what Krisk's increased speed buff is going to allow this team to do is go on a 2-to-1 ratio to the clan boss. So that is our first technique for today. We're speed tuning this team for a 2-to-1 ratio. That means our whole team is going to go twice to every 1 turn of the clan boss. Now you guys, if you watched my previous video, will know it is not required to speed tune your Infinity Clan Boss team to even get a 1 key on Ultra Nightmare. I did it without speed tuning at all. So no, this is not a requirement, but what does this do? It helps you to maximize your damage. Now for those of you who haven't watched my previous video, Hellborn Sprite is in a shield set. That means everyone is going to start the battle with 2 shields. One from a skill that is Krisk's passive skill, and one from a set that is that shield set. So the second technique we're going to employ is we're going to make sure that the clan boss attacks our skill shield first and not the artifact shield. We want the clan boss to attack our artifact shield second. Now the clan boss, the way it works is he will deplete 1 shield and then go to the next shield. We want him to start with that artifact shield first. So why do we want the clan boss to deplete our skill shields first and not our artifact shields? Well, it's because those skill shields can be replaced. Now, Krisk here is not going to replace his skill shields because he only gives them at the beginning of the round, and the clan boss fight is 1 long round. But we have Brogni in here, and he can cast shields. So when that skill shield from Krisk goes down, Brogni can replace it. But think about what would happen if the clan boss started attacking that artifact shield first. Once it goes down, it's done. I mean, it's from an artifact and you get it at the beginning of the round, and the whole clan boss fight is 1 long round. So it's done. So in order to preserve as long as we can that artifact shield that cannot be replaced mid-fight, we're going to make the clan boss target our skill shield first. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense right now, it will make sense later. And lastly, guys, we're going to maximize our damage with our masteries. So our masteries are going to be a little bit different than a previous video. So the first up for our advanced techniques is going to be the speed tune. So here I am on Deadwood Jedi's site, and here are the speeds you need to get that 2-1 ratio against the clan boss. So this is going to be your first challenge to maximize your damage. Can you get the speeds required to be in that speed tune? Look at that first speed here, 286. So here we see the speeds and the champs from Mullet Reaver's Infinity Clan Boss team. Your Chris is going to have to be super fast because your Chris is going to be the one that goes first and applies that increased speed buff to the rest of your team to get them to that 2-to-1 ratio. Plus, he's going to need to be really tanky because he's absorbing a ton of damage from the rest of the team because of his ally protection buff that is up the whole time. As far as I know, there is not any particular order to the rest of the champs and how they take their turns, with one exception. You cannot have Brogni go right after Krisk. Once again, you cannot have Brogni go right after Krisk. Don't worry, this will make more sense when I show you the beginning of the run. So here's my team, their speeds and the orders that they take their turns. So starting off with Krisk here, he's first and we have 286 speed on him. Next we have Hellborn Sprite with 268 speed, so she goes second. Third is going to be Lash Survivor and she has 251 speed. Now fourth here is going to be Brogni with 196 speed, and last is going to be Corpulent Cadaver with 187 speed. So when does this team start to sync up with the clan boss to get into that 2-to-1 ratio? So for these particular speeds, for me it's going to be turn 5 here. So notice we start off with Corpulent Cadaver, everyone takes their double turns, end off with Hellborn Sprite, and then the clan boss takes his turn. And so on and so forth, always starting with Corpulent Cadaver and ending off with Hellborn Sprite. So depending on who your team is, it's going to start off differently and end differently, but you want that regularity. You want to see in the calculator that everyone is always taking at least their double turns and then the clan boss is taking his turn. That is, you are in that 2-to-1 ratio. Double check your team in the calculator here. Now for Nightmare for this team, it's the same thing. So notice right now it's Nightmare and we see here on turn 5, we're getting that sync. That is, everyone's taking their double turns. We start with Corpulent Cadaver and we end off with Hellborn Sprite, so on and so forth. So we're in sync at turn 5. Once again, for these particular speeds and this particular team. Now, speed tunes, when someone dies, it really throws everything out of sync. So the best case scenario for you to maintain that 2-to-1 ratio against the clan boss is to make sure that everyone lives as long as possible, or that they die relatively close to one another. You don't want someone to die early and throw off the whole sync. So gearing, that is going to be one of your priorities. See who dies first and try to make them live a little bit longer to keep everything in sync. Now, chances are Chris is going to die first eventually because of that ally protection. He's taking so much damage. So that's kind of to be expected. But if someone else is dying on your team early, make sure to bring up their defense to make them last as long as possible to keep everyone in that 2-to-1 ratio as long as possible. Now with Brutal, we see the same thing here, getting into tune at turn 4, but notice the order has changed. Now we start off with Underpriest Brogni instead of Corpulent Cadaver, but we're still always ending off with Hellborn Sprite, then the clan boss. So that's going to be the same throughout the whole fight, starting with Underpriest Brogni, everyone takes their double turns and ending with Hellborn Sprite and then the clan boss. So whatever difficulty that you're going for, make sure to double check your speeds in the calculator to make sure your team is actually staying in tune. So speed tuning your team really worth it? It depends. You can 1-key Ultra Nightmare without a speed tune like I showed you in my last video, but if you really want to maximize your damage, yeah, you're gonna need a speed tune. My speed tune, my team, my damage went up astronomically, like a ridiculous amount. So once again, if you really want to maximize your damage, or your clan isn't particularly strong for a particular difficulty of the clan boss and you want to do more damage than just that simple 1-key, then yeah, speed tune your team. Going 2 times for every 1 time the clan boss goes does a ton for your damage. I mean, guys, just look at my speed tune team for Ultra Nightmare. Using 3 keys on my 816 million damage just by myself with 3 keys. If I use a 4th key, I can probably solo the whole thing just by myself. So if you want maximum damage, absolutely speed tune. Mullet Reaver does it and Victor Test does it. Next up, guys, let's talk about positioning your shield so that the clan boss depletes your skill shield first and your artifact shield second. So if you're using a shield set like I am, you want to position Krisk higher than your shield set champion. So notice Krisk here is in position 2 and Hellborn Sprite, our shield set champion, is in position 3. So this is how we start the battle with our setup. Now everybody has 2 shields here, 1 from Krisk and 1 from the shield set. So notice everybody's first shield, that is that shield on the leftmost portion of the bar here, the shield with a single line down it, is that skill shield from Krisk. So everybody has that shield first. What does first mean? That the clan boss is going to attack that shield first because it's to the leftmost, okay? So the single line down, it does mean it's from a skill shield, and to the right of that is the shield with a cross between it. Now that shield is going to be your artifact shield from that shield set. So once again, why do we care about the clan boss attacking the leftmost or skill shield first? Because that shield is replaceable by Brogni. Once it goes down, Brogni can replace it with another skill shield. But that artifact shield from the shields that cannot be replaced ever. Once it's gone, it's gone. So this is the perfect position that we want to keep the shields as long as possible. So Chris is going to start off with this A3 here that increases speed, but we're going to keep this buff up permanently. So really he never has to use it again. And none of this has to be manual. All this can be autoed in the skill instructions. So don't worry about this. This is just for purposes of explanation. So I mentioned that one thing that cannot happen in your lineup is Brogni cannot go second right after Krisk. Why is this? Well, I'm going to show you, okay? So here we do have Krisk, and he's going to use his A3 right here and put up that increased speed on everybody. Now, second is going to be Hellborn Sprite, but I'm going to simulate that she doesn't exist. I'm just going to use her A1, so it's almost like she's not taking a turn. So the same thing is going to happen if I just use her A1, as if Brogni is going to go second, okay? So you're going to see something happen that shouldn't happen. So once again, using that A3 from Krisk, okay? Remember, let's just say she doesn't exist, right? Hellborn Sprite here. I'm just gonna have her use her A1. Now for Brogni here, oh, I'm gonna have her, let's say she doesn't exist either, right? I'm just gonna have her use her A1 too, okay? So once again, this is all to simulate what if Brogni went right after your Krisk here. So we want to use Brogni's A3 here to put up that block, debuffs, and increase attack, but it also has a shield in it, okay? So what happens if I use this right now? Notice some shields here are in yellow. And look, the order has changed. Remember, the leftmost shield for everybody used to be that shield with a single line down it, but some people now have their leftmost shield as the cross shield. This is not a good thing. Notice here, for at least 3 of our characters, the clan boss is going to start to attack their artifact shield first and not their skill shield. So we don't have that perfect lineup that we did right in the beginning. So how do we avoid this? In between Krisk's and Brogni's first turn, we need at least one character to extend buffs. This will prevent Brogni from overriding those shields with his own shield. So starting over, we want at least one buff extension before Brogni does his A3. This will keep him from overriding those shields and changing up the order that we have so perfectly aligned right here. So once again, we're starting with Krisk, his A3. Now, one buff extension, that's all we need. You can do more if you want, but all we need is one here. Okay, Lash, I just have her do her A1. Now, we can use the A3 here and it should not overwrite any of the shields. So we should not see any position changes or any shields with yellow outlines around them. That means they're Brogni shields that cannot be removed. So we do Brogni's A3 here. Notice none of the shields have changed their position. Perfect. So that's it for your setup, guys, but you don't actually have to go through this manually. You can set it up in your skill instructions so it is full auto from the start. So when you line up your shields correctly, when that first skill shield falls off, you can immediately replace it. So here you see turn 68 when Krisk's skill shield falls off and he's just left with this artifact shield. So what you'll see me do in the run is turn it off auto, use Brogni's A3 one time to replace that missing skill shield on Krisk and then put it on auto again. So it's going to look like this. Krisk with a brand new skill shield right after the clan boss has worn away his previous one. Now what this allows Krisk to do is use one shield to protect himself, the one that's been building up this whole time, that is that artifact shield. All of a sudden that's the shield that the clan boss beats up on, but it's been charging this whole time. And at the same time recharging another shield, and that is that renewed skill shield. Now, technically, you can do this technique with everybody, though it benefits Krisk the most because Krisk benefits the whole team the most with that ally protection. So really, you can see the most benefit from reapplying that skill shield after it's worn away with Krisk. You can do it with the other champs, but really it's not going to extend your run a whole lot. With Krisk, yes, it's going to make a massive difference. So this whole shield alignment and reapplying the shield technique is really for Krisk. That is the main person that you want to do this on. Now in my run, all I did was pause it once, do this for Krisk one time, and just let it run. So I did not do this for every single champ. You're only going to see me do it one time this run, and it's just for Krisk. Now the thing with this is you really have to catch it on time. That is right after Krisk's skill shield is broken. You have to turn it off auto, have Brogni reapply his shield, then put it back on auto. What happens if you miss this is that Krisk is always going to be applying new buffs to himself, in particular continuous heals, and that is going to fill up his buff bar. So if you allow him to keep on taking turns, you don't catch this early, all of a sudden when you try to reapply a new shield with Brogni, there's no space on Krisk's buff bar. So yes, you do need to catch this right away. Now, if this technique sounds somewhat burdensome, especially just catching Krisk right when his shield falls off to reapply a new one, it is, but really you only need to do this when you want to absolutely maximize your damage. If I just let this run full auto and never reapply Krisk's shield, I'd probably get 100 to 150 million damage on Ultra Nightmare. So it's not required to one key or anything like that. I didn't do this in my first video when I one keyed Ultra Nightmare with a non-speed tuned team. So no, you don't need to do this. It's only if you want to maximize your damage. So it's really cool having this option. If you want to do, gosh, a ton more damage, yeah, all you need to do is pause it once, reapply that shield and let it go back on auto. But if you don't care about it, or if you have a really strong clan and all you need to do is that minimum for that one key, then just let it run on auto the whole time. No, you do not need to do this. It's just an option to get you more damage. So lastly, guys, what masteries are going to help this team do the maximum amount of damage. Now remember, for an Infinity team, everything is based off Brogni's A2 here and how hard this hits. Everything, all right? If you cannot make this A2 hit hard, you do not have an Infinity team. So really, we'll want to maximize in particular how hard this A2 hits. Now for offense masteries, all of the tier 6 offense masteries here help Brogni's A2 hit harder, every single one of them. So the question is, which is the best? The gold standard here is probably going to be Giant Slayer. So you're going to see Mullet Reaver and Victor Test have this mastery on their Brognies. So with this mastery, for all of Brogni's attack, that is his A1 and his A2, his A3 is not an attack, he would get a 30% chance to get bonus damage based off enemy max HP. But that's not the end of the story. Giant Slayer here can actually activate based off Brogni's passive when somebody with the shield gets hit. Now the clown boss is doing AoEs like 2 out of 3 turns and single target damage for 1 out of those 3. So I mean, the clown boss is hitting all the time. So every time the clown boss hits any of your champs and they are shielded the whole fight, because if they're not, they'll die instantly. Yeah, you're gonna get a chance to get that bonus damage from Giant Slayer. So as far as damage goes, this is the most consistent, and you're gonna get the most damage from this up front because the clown boss is hitting all your champs 2 out of 3 turns, plus you're gonna have shields on them really the majority, 99% of the fight. So from the very beginning of the fight, this is gonna give you very good damage results. But from just the A2, if we're talking about the A2 in isolation, notice you only have a 30% chance to proc that bonus damage. Now this actually isn't that high compared to War Master. So that's the thing, if we're just talking about the A2 and maximizing the damage of that, then actually this is not your best choice. But if we're talking about like overall damage or even damage up front, very consistent damage, then this would be a great choice. So really it was Mullet Reaver that gave me the idea to, you know what, go actually for War Master, because you're maximizing the damage potential of the A2 with War Master. So you're not getting the Giant Slayer procs from people hitting your shields. Yes, you're not getting that damage, so your damage numbers are going to be lower in the beginning. But as far as getting that A2 to hit as hard as possible, which is really the linchpin of this whole Infinity Clan Boss system, yes, you're doing more damage with War Master because you have a 60% chance to proc that bonus damage compared to the 30% chance you have with Giant Slayer. So with my particular team in the gear, I actually think War Master works better than Giant Slayer, but I think this is champ and gear dependent. So this is for my account. But if you want to stay safe, guys, I mean, you want to do what the pros do, Victor Test and Mullet Reaver, then go with Giant Slayer. It's up to you. Test them both out, see which one works better for you. Now let's move on to Krisk and his masteries. So you see here, I do have War Master on him, so we're getting bonus damage based off enemy max HP. But in talking to Mullet Reaver, he actually does not think this is the best mastery for Krisk. What does he recommend instead? Iron Skin here. Now a lot of you guys have probably forgotten that this exists, but this increases your defense by 200. So what does this do? This keeps Krisk alive longer. What does that do? It keeps everyone alive longer, okay? Because of that ally protection, Krisk is taking a ton of damage for the whole team, and the longer he stays alive, the longer everybody stays alive. So really, you're trading off a little bit of that bonus damage based off enemy max HP for keeping everybody else alive. In particular, your Corpulent Cadaver. The longer he stays alive, the longer he can do damage. So I think both of these masteries are good choices, but if you want the pros pick, then it's going to be Iron Skin here. And lastly, guys, let's talk about Hellborn Sprite here and her Bulwark mastery. So how does this mastery benefit the team? Well, Corpulent Cadaver, because of this mastery, will be taking less damage to his shields. Now, the damage that he does is based on the size of his shields. So the less damage that is done to his shields, the more damage he will do. Now, here we have Bulwark, which will absorb 5% of the damage that would have been done to Corpulent Cadaver's shield, and instead Hellborn Sprite is going to take it on herself. So as I mentioned in my first video, this is one of like the secret sauces of this comp. This will make you do millions more damage, just putting your Hellborn Sprite or anybody in bulwark. Really, it makes Corpulent Cadaver do so much more damage. I'm talking in the millions. So the logical question is, if one bulwark mastery increases your overall total damage, then what about multiple bulwark masteries? Shouldn't that increase your damage even more, because even less damage is being taken by Corpulent Cadaver? And the answer is no, because the skill does not stack. At most, have one person in bulwark. You cannot have multiple people with bulwark. It just doesn't work. Once again, this skill does not stack. Do not have more than one champion in bulwark. But that being said, you can have multiple guardian sets. The guardian sets do work as they describe, and they do stack. So if you have multiple guardian sets, then yes, Corpulent Cadaver will be taking a lot less damage. So you see Mullet Reaver's team, he has multiple people in guardian sets. So that does work, though multiple people in bulwark does not work. So guys, before I get to everyone's gear stats and masteries and the run itself, let me talk about a few issues. So the first issue is going to be, is this score based on fighting the clan boss in the green affinity or the spirit affinity? You guys might notice whenever Victor, Tess, or Mullet Reaver does their runs, that they're fighting against the spirit affinity clan boss. And why do they do that? Because it gives them the best score. Why is this? Because no one has a bad affinity when you're fighting the spirit affinity clan boss, but one person has a superior affinity or an advantage with affinity, and that is Brogni. So when you're fighting the Spirit Affinity clan boss, all of a sudden Brogni can strong hit against the clan boss, but the clan boss can weak hit against Brogni. So huge advantage for Brogni. In particular, his A2 doing more damage. So the question is this an inflated score? What would your damage be if you were fighting, for example, the Void clan boss, where there are no affinity advantages or disadvantages? And here it is against the Void Affinity clan boss Ultra Nightmare. Look at that, 250 million damage. Still pretty freaking good. And here is the score on the Nightmare clan boss, 439 million, before I had to manually stop the run because it was going to go over that 1500 turn limit. So anyway you cut it, guys, ridiculous damage potential in this clan boss team. The damage potential for this team is the most I've ever seen in any clan boss team ever. All right guys, on to the skill instructions. So for Sandlash here, I do have her open with her A1. For Krisk, I do have him open with his A3, then never use it again. Hellborn Sprite, turn her A3 to her priority here, so she's going to use it her first turn. Under Priest Brogni, use his A3 for his first turn, then never use it again. And for Corpulent, make sure to turn off his A2 and A3 to just use his A1. All right guys, this is going to be a long run, so I'm going to speed it up, but in particular for turn 68, you guys can watch that. I'm going to slow it down to normal speed so you can see me reapply Krisk's shield after it falls off. After that, everything is back on full auto. On to everyone's gear stats and masteries, starting with Krisk here. So how have I geared him? I have him in a stalwart set and a speed set. On to his total stats. So I have his HP at 40,000, have the attack at 2200, defense 5100, speed 288, crit rate 32%, crit damage 102%, resist 208, and accuracy 257. So in particular, all we care about are three stats for Krisk. That speed has to be there. He needs to be the first on the team, over 286 speed for that 2-to-1 ratio for that speed tune. We need enough defense from him, so as much as you can put on him. Literally as much as you can put on him because he's taking damage from the whole team because of his ally protection. And lastly, we need enough accuracy to land his debuff. So I would say 250 and above. Shoot for that for your Krisk for Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. Onto his masteries. So down the offense tree here, I do have War Master, so we're getting bonus damage based off enemy max HP. But as far as the pros pick, Mullet Reaver recommends Iron Skin here. The longer everyone stays alive, the longer you can do damage. So definitely if you want the pros pick, Iron Skin here. But I've found that War Master is not too bad. Alright guys, on to Brogni. So how have I geared him? I have him in a Reflex set and a Cruel set. Ideally, you want 3 refresh accessories on everybody except Corpulent Cadaver. But yeah, in particular, Brogni himself. The more he can use the A2, the more he can grow your shields, and therefore, the more damage Corpulent Cadaver can do. But once again, ideally, you want everyone in triple refresh except for Corpulent Cadaver. You can see here, I don't have any refresh for my Brogni. So he could be doing a ton more damage if I had some good refresh accessories for him. Onto his total stats. So I have his HP at 47,000. I have the attack at 3,800, defense 2,500, speed 196, crit rate 83%, crit damage 123%, resist 233, and accuracy 158. So a lot of stats are important for Brogni. That's why building him is quite difficult. You want the attack and you want the crit rate and the crit damage in order for his A2 to do damage, because the growth of the shields is based on how hard that A2 hits. So yeah, you want those damage dealing stats, the attack, crit damage, crit rate. You want the speed for the speed tune, plus you want some accuracy as well, I've noticed, because the A2 does remove a buff, and sometimes depending on the affinity, that clown boss will get that attack buff. So your team will last longer if you could put some accuracy on your Brogni, so when he uses his A2, he removes that increased attack buff from the clown boss. But as you can see, 158, I don't have a ton of accuracy on him. It's really hard to build just everything. Yeah, and by the way, you need defense too, so it doesn't take as much damage. So Brogni is very, very hard to build. One stat you do not need to be at 100% at is his crit rate. Why is this? Because we're getting that increased crit rate buff from Hellborn Sprite, 15%. So really, if you can get around 85% crit rate, that will be fine. And Hellborn Sprite will put up that increased crit rate buff on everybody, and everyone will extend it, I mean, sort of infinitely. So you're always going to have that increased crit rate for Brogni. So once again, you don't need to build them with over 85% crit rate if you're using Hellborn Sprite. Onto his masteries. So once again, if you want the pros pick, the safest choice here is going to be Giant Slayer. It is what Mullet Reaver and Victor Test have on their Brognis. But I do think that War Master here is pretty good, and it works well for my team, and I got the idea for Mullet Reaver himself. So definitely this is a good choice as well. Yes, Helm Smasher does help your A2 do more damage, and Flawless Execution does help your A2 do more damage. So all 3 of these I've tested except for Flawless Execution, but I probably think that War Master Giant Slayer do the most damage over Flawless Execution or over Helm Smasher. Alright guys, on to Sandlash Survivor. So how have I geared her? I have her in a reflex set and a speed set. So you can run her in a Guardian set, that would be a good choice, but I found because I don't have any refresh accessories that when I run her in a Guardian set, buffs eventually fall off champions, and you don't want that to be the case. So reflex works pretty well if you don't have any good refresh accessories, but if you do, then you can go the Guardian route to mitigate the damage on your Corpulent Cadaver, so in turn he does more damage against the clan boss. Onto her total stats. So I have her HP at 32,000, I have the attack at 2,600, defense 5,300, speed 251, crit rate 60%, crit damage 97%, resist 255, and accuracy 128. So for Sandlash, really only 2 stats are needed. That's why she's relatively easy to build around. So the first is going to be her speed. You need her speed correct to be in that speed tune. So wherever you place her in your lineup or your roster, make sure that her speed is appropriate to her position, whatever that is. And you need her defense as high as possible because she's taking the stun. She's the stun target. So put her defense as high as you can while getting the right speeds to be in that speed tune. Onto her masteries. So down the offense tree here, we do have War Master, so we're getting bonus damage based off enemy max HP. Now down the defense tree here, all of these are important except for Resurgent here. This really doesn't play a role in this team. And as far as tier 5 masteries for the defense tree, none of them are important to this clan boss run. Alright guys, on to Hellborn Sprite. So how have I geared her? I have her in a shield set and a speed set. Onto her total stats. So I have her HP at 48,000, I have the attack at 2,100, defense 3,800, speed 268, crit rate 28%, crit damage 111%, resist 128, and accuracy 122. So for Hellborn Sprite, 3 stats are important. Firstly, the speed for the speed tune. Secondly, the defense because you're taking a lot of damage, especially with that Bulwark Mastery, which we'll talk about. And lastly, accuracy. So Hellborn Sprite does have a weaken on her A1. Very, very useful for the whole team. And in particular for Brogni for doing more damage with his A2. But we want that up as much as possible, therefore we need the accuracy. So once again, for Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, we're looking at 250 plus accuracy here. I'm kind of close at 222. I'm doing the best I can with the gear I have, but really for Ultra Nightmare, you're looking at 250 plus. Onto our masteries. So down the defense tree here, we do have the tier 6 mastery Bulwark. So Hellborn Sprite is going to be taking 5% of the damage of the whole team. In particular, Corpulent Cadaver, the less damage he takes to his shields, the more damage he can do in return. Make sure to not take Cycle of Revenge. This can mess up your speed tune. Make sure to not take Rapid Response as well, just in case. And make sure to not take Arcane Celerity either. All these things can mess with your turn meter. You don't want any of that. You just want the right speeds. You want Chris to go first, to put up that increased speed buff, and you're done. All right? So make sure to not take those 3 turn meter manipulating masteries. Lastly, guys, on to Corpulent Cadavers. So how have I geared him? I have him in a stalwart set and a defense set. Onto his total stats. So I have his HP at 46,000, I have the attack at 1400, defense 5300, speed 187, crit rate 52%, crit damage 112%, resist 140, and accuracy 101. So really only 2 stats are important for this guy, just like Sandlash Survivor. All we care about are the speed, so he's in that proper speed tune, and the defense, so his shield is taking as little damage as possible, so it can do as much damage as possible with that A1, because the bonus damage that the A1 inflicts is based on the size of the shield. Now, crit rate, crit damage, they do not affect the bonus damage. That is the bulk of the damage that he does. Okay, it will help you a minuscule amount to have more crit rate or crit damage, but forget about it. It doesn't matter. When we're talking about hundreds of millions, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Just make his speed right and his defense as high as possible. Onto his masteries. So down the offense tree here, we do have War Master, so we're getting bonus damage based off enemy max HP. Now, some of these masteries don't really matter. So here, for example, Life Drinker doesn't really matter. Here with Resurgent, you don't really need this, but you do need to pick something in order to get here, Delay Death, which does matter. Plus the 2 counterattack masteries here, we have Retribution and we have Deterrence here. They do not matter. Alright guys, that is it for my video on advanced Infinity Clan Boss techniques. So I should be back to my daily upload schedule after this video. Sorry for the delay once again, but all my attention was literally on this team and making it the best that I could for this video. And if you guys haven't yet, like, subscribe, and share. Turn on all notifications. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.